You're listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves.
Welcome to show number 272. Today is Sunday, July 27th, 2014, and my name is Steve. I am joined by my co-hosts Hammy and Kurt, and let's get to it. So guys, in tonight's show, we'll talk about Mike Minor's troubling season, the new look lineup, and the crazy year that Aaron Harang is having. But first, the amazing Braves-themed Hall of Fame weekend. So guys, let's start with the speeches first. So what did you guys think? And why don't we take them in order? So Kurt, what did you think about Maddox's speech?
I thought it was very Maddux, very understated. He talked, obviously he was very appreciative about all his time, and he was very loosey-goosey. All the guys, I was listening to the interview that he and Smoltz and Glavine did with Dan Le Batard, and they're both very polished, obviously, now because they're doing media. But Maddux still talks like he's in the dugout or in the clubhouse. I mean, they had to beep him numerous times for his language. So
on the Le Batard show?
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, he just kind of still has that persona, and I guess he's the jokester and everything else, and the prankster, and it just kind of came off. It was very casual, very funny, and very light. So, yeah, it was nice.
That was his, the clip that made the national news of his was the joke he made about Smoltz's receding hairline.
Oh, right.
Which was a great joke.
It was. That was the highlight of his.
Well, and you saw that Smoltz predicted that.
No, did he? He predicted he was going to make that joke?
Yeah, because in the intro on the MLB Network, they asked Smoltz about what Maddox's what about his speech, and Smoltz said, "Well, he'll be very deferential and talk about all his teammates, and due to his consistency, he will also talk about me being bald."
And I bet that he's the first Hall of Famer to make a speech that included a lighting my farts on fire joke.
Yes,
I'm guessing. I thought that, Maddux, I thought it was going great, and he was really thanking, his Little League coach and his dad and his high school coach, and a lot of love for Chicago, and not just the fans, I get that, but just a lot of love playing in Chicago. I thought he kind of gave the Braves and the Braves organization short shrift. Did you not? I was like, wow, pretty underwhelming about Bobby and Glavine and Smoltz and just his whole time in Atlanta.
Yeah, he did. He? I mean, he didn't talk about Leo all that much.
He didn't talk about Leo all that much. He didn't gush about Bobby. It was weirdly sort of standing off to the side about Atlanta, I thought.
Yeah. Well, and not that I hold any sort of grudge against him, because I think it's totally appropriate. But obviously, he is going in without an emblem on his helmet. I mean, on his hat. So. He's obviously pulled in two directions with his allegiances, and that's totally fine. Obviously all of them, he was the one that was the hired gun more than any of them. So.
Right, and didn't live in Atlanta and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not anti-Maddux. I loved Maddux. I loved him. But I was really struck by that in his speech. So Bobby is next, and boy, he kind of mangled the stories he was telling, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Just a little.
And they were great stories.
Yeah. Talking to Maddux, talking to Glavine about walking the guy with the bases loaded. That was, and not noticing that the bases were loaded. That was kind of,
it was funny. It was good.
If he had pulled that off. Of course, he's also famous for walking George Brett when the bases were loaded.
That's true. But Bobby's speech was great. I mean, Bobby's just great. His demeanor and his energy is always terrific. He was so gracious and thankful. I mean, I loved it. And then there was Glavine's. So, Glavine was really the only guy that almost got choked up or did get choked up. I loved all the stuff about his parents and his wife and just loving on the fans and the organization. And, he was really, gushing. And I just thought Glavine's, of the three, not that there has to be a winner, but he was clearly the winner of the three speeches.
And, of course, is the one that, would be routinely booed still by a collection of Atlanta Braves fans. So.
I know, it's so crazy. And I loved all three of the pre-recorded video for those guys. It was really that was just great stuff. The Smoltz thing, the Leo thing, it was really just terrific.
And of course, the best part of the day for the Hall of Fame ceremony was that ESPN's headline was Frank Thomas cries, La Russa and Torrey shine.
Is that true? Oh my God.
It's totally true. That was the headline. And then if you clicked on it, it was that headline again, and then a little sub-bullet, proud day for Atlanta.
I mean, it was 2/3 Atlanta fans in the audience, you know?
Yeah, but
my brother-in-law took my oldest son up there this weekend, so they were there.
Nice.
Yeah, for his birthday.
And Sean, our blogger, is up there as well.
That's right. That's right.
yeah,
So,
I think a few listeners as well. I saw some Facebook pictures of some of our listeners up there. Yeah.
So my son said that after, Maddux, Bobby, and Glavine were done, that no small amount of people started to leave. Which,
nice.
I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. I don't know, good or bad. So guys, let's share favorite memories or the stats we can't get our heads around about these three guys. So Hammy, why don't you start on Maddux?
Okay. In terms of memories and a specific memory where I think I was loving Maddux the most was his 2-hit complete game in a game 1 of the World Series against the Indians in '95. And that was because he had not done great in the playoffs. He had certainly been underwhelming compared to his regular season dominance. But that game to kick it off, we so needed that, and he came through. And I just thought that was such a memorable moment for Maddux and me. I'm sure he remembered me in that moment as well. But I think the stats that jump out to me was just that dominant run from 94 to 95, where he was peerless. He had a 900 winning percentage in 95, which is just and so efficient. He won 18 Gold Gloves, the most ever by a pitcher. Including 13 in a row from 90 to 2002. You can go through all the stats, and there's so many categories where he just blows your mind how dominant he is. And for me, the last thing I'd say is that I think in my lifetime, Maddux was the greatest player to ever wear any Atlanta sports jersey. Falcons, Hawks. He was the best. He was the best player to ever wear an Atlanta sports jersey in my lifetime.
Are you forgetting about Ilya Kovalchuk?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot
There's our
hockey.
one Thrashers mention.
Yeah, I was about to say, and how many people are going to Google right now wondering how to spell Ilya Kovalchuk?
Kurt, what do you got?
Just the numbers. I mean, the numbers of Maddux. And I think I was at a party one time, and someone said, God, that guy looks just like Greg Maddux. And I think that's what the amazing thing about Greg Maddux is that some dude at a party that I was at that might be mistaken for Greg Maddux.
Yeah.
Because he still honestly looks pretty much the same as he did when he played. I mean, he's still kind of dumpy looking, but the things that he did, the control, and it's just extraordinary. I mean, going 17 straight seasons where he won 15 or more games, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah. I mean, he had a complete game shutout where he threw 78 pitches. You're talking now guys do that in the 4th inning. Even good starters do that in the 4th inning, 5th inning. So just stuff like that'll never be repeated. I don't think. I mean, I just don't see how there is a guy that pitches like that anymore. I mean, because they just don't have the style. You just don't see a guy that pitches like Maddux pitch really anymore. I mean, if they do, they're the 5th starter. They're not the ace of a staff.
Yeah, and CB, before you go, I mean, if you look at Maddox's sort of where he stands in career innings pitched, he pitched 5,000. He was able to go 5,000 innings, 5,008, and the people above him are from a completely different era. There's no one like him. And Kurt, it's to that efficiency, right? I mean, it's so remarkable. This is at the beginning of the steroid era where he's having this dominance, right? Before people even started paying attention to it. And he's looking like he's Walter Johnson, right? I mean, he's looking like a completely different dominant type of pitcher. And I don't think we'll ever see someone like Maddux.
Yeah, again. Walter Johnson in the skin of a librarian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ham, like you were saying about the best Atlanta athlete that we had, I mean, Maddux was appointment television. Like Pedro, I'm sure, was in Boston. I mean, Sports Guy talked about Pedro being appointment television. Maddux was like that for us, and year after year after year. His whip in his 4 Cy Young seasons was 1.01, 1.04, and then he got better, 0.89 and 0.81.
Yeah, that's 94 and 95.
0.81.
Yeah.
0.81 for a season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. My Maddux memory, sort of mixed up in my wedding, is that 96 NLCS, we went up 1-0 and then lost the next 3 games. But so down 3-1, Smoltz, Maddux, and Glavine are lined up to pitch. Smoltz pitches game 5, and it was a blowout. It was like 13 or 14 zip or whatever. But then I remember being out in wine country in California on my honeymoon, and we watched Maddux 7 2/3, 80 pitches, no walks, 1 run, just dominate and keep us in that series. And then Glavine went in, of course, and blew them away and shut them out the next game.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that was, you wanted a little more of that for Maddux in the playoffs, Ham, like you said. But God, when he was on, like through the regular season, there was almost no one better.
There really wasn't. And I mean, and just sneakily so. Like, did you know I mean, you do because we love him, but he's number 10 in career strikeouts. He's 10th career strike. I mean, you never think of Maddux as a strikeout guy, but he was. He was so dominant that everything he did, every facet of the game, he is Hall of Fame. Right?
Yeah, Dan Lebitard on that interview, and go out and find that, folks, because it's very good. Lebitard had asked the guys, what percentage of the time were you able to put a pitch where you wanted to? And Maddux was like, 2/3 of the time, which has got to be undercutting the number significantly.
Absolutely.
To have those 80 pitch performances, just unbelievable.
Or he was trying to throw it through the eye of a needle and missed by a human hair.
Yeah, well,
right.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to Bobby. Kurt, what's your biggest Bobby memory?
I guess just him being there for so long, the consistency, the getting thrown out of so many games because of his commitment to his players, and even listening to Glavine and Maddux talk in their speeches, talking about playing for Bobby Cox. And we all have jobs, and when you get a manager that you love and love to work for, that's the best work environment that you can possibly have. And so it shows why they were so successful with Bobby. I mean, Bobby's got his critics, and I'm certainly one of them, but there is a reason why they won so many games. And Glavine, going back to that Lebitard interview, Glavine told this funny story, and it involves all 3 of these guys, Glavine, Maddux, and Cox. And back in the day when pitchers on their off day had to chart pitches for other starters, and so Maddux was charting pitches for whoever was starting that day, Merker or whoever it was, and so Glavine came in and was talking to Maddux about the pitches, and was asking about the umpire. He's like, "Has he given us a good game?" And he said, "Yeah, no, he's missed a couple, but he's given us a couple of calls too." And Glavine said, "Okay." So Bobby walked in right behind Glavine and asked Maddux the same thing and said, "How's the umpire looking?" And Maddux said, "Oh, he's terrible. He's missing so many calls. He's all over the place." And so Bobby got all fired up and walked out of the room. And Glavine said, "Why did you do that? He's going to get thrown out of the game now." And Maddux said, "Yeah, I know." And the next half inning, Bobby got thrown out of the game. I mean, it was just like he had so much faith in Maddux and Maddox's word that he was willing to go out there and fight for his guy, just knowing, thinking that the guy was getting squeezed and got tossed from the game. So that's a great story. That's a great Bobby Cox story right there.
That is.
Hammy, how about you?
So, I think my lasting memory for Bobby, and again, I think my most proud moment of him was when he won Manager of the Year in '91 with the Braves, beating out Jim Leland, Joe Torre, and Tommy Lasorda. And he'd actually won it the year before in the American League. And so I was just so pumped for him. I was just so excited to I was like, we have the best manager in the baseball, and sort of, just brandishing that, like we've got such a huge future. And then, over time, I think, and then I guess it's bittersweet because over time I came to take Bobby for granted and definitely underappreciated him and the greatness that he was, and Kurt, all that sort of that continuity that you spoke to. But like, I just remember still vividly 91, like Bobby Cox was a rock star to me, which he never was throughout the rest of the career, as great as he was. So, and then there's one moment in particular that I also loved about Bobby and I don't remember what season it was, but it was like in the 2000s. So near the end of his run. And I just remember early on in the game, he had walked down to the end of the dugout to talk to someone or do something. And we got on a roll. And so then he spent the whole game sitting with his knee on the bench of the end of the dugout, for superstition or afraid he was going to jinx it if he went back, which I just loved about him. I mean, here's this guy who'd won more, over 2,000 games and had been coaching for 25 seasons with the Braves, and just that little childlike superstition I loved about Bobby. That sort of humanness. So those are two moments for me.
Yeah, and all the Bobby fighting for his players stuff is great. And every single player to a man that we've ever interviewed, it's the same thing. Loved playing for Bobby, would do anything for him. He always had your back, all that stuff. But I love that there was that other side that I feel like, you have to have, or, people are going to run all over you, is when he benched Andrew for not hustling after a fly ball. And it sort of cemented the fact that this guy's grandfatherly and he's got your back, but play the game the right way or there's going to be consequences. There's just something about that I always loved about Bobby. It sort of always gave me extra faith in him. And one other thing about Bobby, and it was his last game, it was that San Francisco playoff series that we lost. But, the game wins. The Giants win and they start to celebrate on the field for like a second. And then they stop, and all the attention goes on to Bobby because it's Bobby's last game. Mm-hmm. And, like you had said, Hammy, and so proud at the beginning of his career, it brought it all home to me about how much we had taken him for granted and just what a rock he was and what just a fantastic manager he was. That, the whole stadium stopped and it became about Bobby at the end of that playoff series. It was just it was a great moment there in the stadium.
Indeed.
All right, Hammy, let's move on to Glavine. How about Tommy G?
So I think for my, the personal, or I guess the one specific moment, I should probably share it with a lot of people, and that is Game 6 of the '95 World Series when he pitched one-hit baseball and brought it home for us, and the only title we ever won. Just dominance and him really being how perfect it was that he was the one who won that game, because I felt like he was one of the more enduring Braves over that whole run, and that he was the one who got to take that was great for me. He always stood out as the biggest fighter on the team in terms of just how he faced off, and he always struggled in the first inning, then he would get it together and always be so dominant down the stretch. And of the three, Smoltz, Maddux, and Glavine, Smoltz always had the more overpowering dominant stuff, right? And like we talked about Maddux, I mean, Maddux was a different pitcher. He seemed to have a bit of a mental advantage as well as maybe a bit of a control advantage. But for me, Glavine, I think Glavine threw more gutsy pitches than both of those guys did in their careers. He was just a guy who would fall behind. He was relentless with that changeup on the outside corner to right-handed batters. I mean, he just didn't give in ever, ever, ever. And he didn't always have the best stuff. He didn't have the best control, but he found a way to win more than I think Smoltz and Maddux had to. And I always loved that about him.
Curtis?
Well, I think he's by far the most underappreciated of the three. As Hamilton was saying, you compare him to John Smoltz, Greg Maddux. I think that of the big three that we always talk about, they were talking about it on the radio the other day. Who would you pick if you had a postseason game of those three? And most of them picked Smoltz just because of his postseason record and his overpowering stuff that he could strike people out, which is so important in the postseason. And none of them picked Glavine. And, of course, Glavine threw the most important game in the history of the Braves and did so almost perfectly, 8 innings with 1 hit. And you look at his numbers, I mean, his ERA in World Series games, he just got better and better as the postseason went on. His World Series ERA is 2.16. His World Series WHIP is 0.9. So 3 complete games that he threw. Those are the only complete games he threw were in the World Series. So his record's only 4-3. Yeah, his postseason record is not great. If you look numerically, but there's more to those stories than are told. That's a lot of 2-1 losses. I'm betting you 3-2 stuff like that.
The decisions do not do justice. Yeah.
So, but just the fact that he, he had a stretch where 91 to 93, he won 62 games. Greg Maddux does not have a 3-year stretch like that, and he only won 1 Cy Young during that period because Maddux won 2 out of the 3 years. But I mean, he had years, he went 20-8 and 22-6 in back-to-back years and finished second one year and third the other year in Cy Young. So I think Tom Glavine is just a completely underappreciated pitcher. I mean, I think he's 5th all-time in Major League Baseball for wins by a left-handed pitcher. So, and his athleticism, he talked about it today, that he was drafted in the NHL draft ahead of Luke Robitaille and Brett Hull, who are both obviously NHL Hall of Famers. So that says something, too, about what an amazing athlete Tom Glavine is. So, I think that just his underappreciation and the fact that the silliness that people boo him and stuff like that. I mean, that we don't appreciate the amazing talent that Tom Glavine was, as well as these other guys, is a crime.
4 silver sluggers. 4 silver sluggers. More than any other Brave pitcher.
In his 22-year career, he averaged more than 1 home run per 9 innings only once, and that was his final season. There was a lot of method to his madness. To me, so back to Game 6 of the 95 season, I love the story that he walked into the dugout middle of the game and said, just get me 1 run. Because 1, it's just so badass. And 2, it's so not his personality. And it was a great mind game for him to say something like that. Coming from him, he knew the kind of effect it could have on the team. And it worked, right?
Yeah,
it's just great.
You have to figure that fire somebody like David Justice up, so who was so motivated by energy and things like that. A player like David Justice, that he hears that. I'm sure if you talk to David Justice, I don't know that we asked him that question.
No, we didn't, which is a shame.
If he heard that and said, you know what, I'm going to go get you a home run because I believe you. If Tom Glavine's saying that, then by God, I'm making sure that he gets that run.
Well, just an amazing weekend. I mean, guys, it will be like nothing we'll ever see again. We'll get Smoltz probably next year and Chipper in a couple more years, and then
I think that's it. Schuerholz maybe gets in, but I don't know that he'll get in like this. I mean, I don't know how they put executives in. Do they go into the halls in the same type of ceremony, or is that something?
Yeah, I think they do.
Do they? Yeah, I mean, I think for a while I thought, God, there's going to be so many guys off this team that are going to be going into the Hall of Fame. But I think you're right. I think it's Chipper and it's Smoltz and Schuerholz, and I think that beyond that, there's really not going to be much else.
And to get 3 of the guys from the run in 1 year, it's just really tremendous. Great stuff. All right, so guys, let's move to news on the field. So a pretty disappointing 3-4 week. Made only a little less disappointing, I guess, having won these last 2 games against the Padres. To me, this doesn't look like a playoff team right now. And it's time to win a bunch of series in a row or go on a long streak because the Nats are not losing. They look like they've heated up. This team needs to figure it out quick or this season the tenor is going to change.
Well, they blew a big opportunity. That's all I'm going to say. They've gone. This is 2 months. They've played 2 teams with winning records over the course of 2 months, and I was too wrapped up in the Hall of Fame and the positivity of that to really kind of dig into that. I figured we could carry that over to next week. But they've not taken advantage of it.
Yeah, they're not taking advantage. They're not taking care of the NL East. They're not taking care of the NL West.
And now they have 22 straight games against teams over 500. So we hope, we've talked about it a lot with the Braves, about them playing to their competition. Well, let's hope that proves prophetic and that they actually do play up to better competition, because that's all they're getting from this point forward for quite a while.
Yeah,
they can, though. I mean, I'm heartened by this week, and that Miami has our number, and
San Diego even more so.
Yeah, and as bad as we looked this week, and we looked awful, we came out 3-4, right? So for me, I think that if you're a playoff team and you're going to have a stretch where you look this bad and still to be 3-4 and not 1-6, I take a little bit of heart with. They looked awful this week. I'm not giving them a pass, but I'd say the way they played to come out 3-4 was great. And now is the time to see it. It's like you said. Let's see, like you said, Curtis. Let's see if they can play up to the competition, and
they can play down to it.
Yeah, but this is it. I think this is in 3 weeks is when we will know where this team is for this season. I think our season is the next 3 weeks.
I totally agree. All right, guys, a couple of quick announcements. So first, as of now, all our new shows will also be available on our new YouTube channel, which you can find by searching Atlanta Baseball Talk. And once you find us, subscribe. And it's another great way, along with iTunes and Stitcher, to make sure you don't miss any shows. We also have a new Facebook fan page, so go out there and like us. It is at facebook.com/Atlanta Baseball Talk. All right, guys, let's play Pepper, where I throw some things out there for some quick hit opinions by you guys. So Mike Minor's last 6 starts, dating back to June 26th in Houston. Here's his ERAs. 5 earned, 4 earned, 2 earned, 6 earned, 6 earned, and then today 3 earned. Although 2 home runs in there was not so heartening. So, Kurt, what should the Braves do with Mike Minor?
I don't think there's an option. I do like how you went 6 earned, 2 earned, 5 earned. I don't think there's much of a choice. I love David Hale, but you can't throw Mike Minor in the bullpen. You can't send him down. You just have to hope that he's going to put out a game like he did today, and hope upon hope, kind of the way we do with the whole team, that he gets it figured out and it gets it headed in the right direction. He's too valuable of a piece when he's good. And I know he's not been good very much at all, but I just don't see that there's much of an option other than throwing him out there.
Yeah, and the other problem with sending him down to AAA is then you put Hale in, and now you are totally out of any depth in starting pitching.
Right, especially in long relief.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with everything Curtis is saying. You know, I think maybe if he's going through one of those stretches where he's a 6.55 earned runs, maybe Hale spot starts him. He doesn't even go down. That's it though. You just got to hope that he gets it together.
Yeah, they need to watch tape a little harder or something. They got to figure this out. All right, guys, in Tuesday's game against the Marlins this week, Freddie made another lineup change. He replaced Simmons with Stella in the 2-hole and put Simmons back down in the 8. Do you think it's a good move, Hammy?
You know, I do. I think in every aspect, Stella is, over the past 30 days, has been a better hitter than Simmons, except for one category, and that's runs scored. So Stella has a much higher OBP. He's on base a lot more. And when he's down in the bottom of the lineup, he's not scoring runs because he has nobody behind him, pitcher, BJ. So I think for the Braves for this lineup to be optimal, I think Stella needs to be number 2 so that he's right in front of our money guys, Freeman, Upton, Gaddis.
Curtis, what about you?
I like it. Simmons had gone 1 for 14 4 games before he was moved, and everybody apparently but BJ, when they start to struggle, they get moved. So, but I like Estella. I like him as a contact hitter up at the top. He's on base, which is what you need when you've got Freeman coming up and Justin coming up behind him, Gaddis back in the lineup. You want runners on when those guys will connect and hit home runs, and that's the way the Braves score a lot. So, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I thought it was strange. I mean, I know that those last few games, Simmons started to struggle, but he had seemed to take to the 2 spot. His slash line in those 22 games there was 286, 343, 330. And his numbers are significantly lower in the 8 hole, 235, 293, 338. And there was that stretch in mid-June where Stella batted in the 1 spot for 5 games and then the 2 spot for 3 games. He went 2 for 30 there. And I know it's small sample size, but look, it all may work out, but for the record, this week Stella was 6 for 26 and Simmons was 4 for 22. Neither one of them took that quickly and well to their new spots. All right, guys. I think we can all agree that Aaron Harang's season has been nothing short of ridiculous, amazing, impossible. Let's play some Guess the Stats with Aaron Harang. So, Hammy, you go first. Harang's ERA over his last 6 starts, which is since that 8-run meltdown he had against Philly. So his last 6 starts.
2.4.
Curtis?
I'll go lower, 2.25.
2.20. I mean, it's unbelievable. And what's even more unbelievable, guys, what's his opponent OBP over those last 6 starts, Curtis?
320.
Hammy?
Yeah, I think it's around there. I'll go higher. I'm going to say 335.
Yeah, so 327. He's given up over those 6 games 42 hits and 14 walks.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
always
a lot
in trouble.
of base runners.
Always in trouble.
Oh, my God, always in trouble. 8 double plays over those 6 games, which really explains him getting out of all of it. It's the one thing that worries me about it. And I suppose, he had that 8-game meltdown in Philly, had that 8-run meltdown in June, and then there was that 9-run meltdown in Florida earlier in the season. But other than that, it's really been amazing. But he's got to keep those base runners off.
Yeah, that's like a thing that in the postseason, all of those great things all of a sudden turn totally against you.
Yeah, I don't like the prospect of us heavily relying on Harang in the postseason.
And right now, he's your number 2 starter.
He's your number 3 starter.
Who's number 2?
It's Tehran Santana Harang. Come on. Really?
Okay.
You're starting Harang too? Santana seems to have figured it out. Yeah, Santana's 2. No doubt about it.
And then Harang over Minor?
Well, yeah, right now.
I mean, I know right now for sure.
Well, do we even want to do the postseason hope meter this week?
We're going rogue.
I'm a 3.
I'm a 5.
I'm a 2.
Yeah. I mean, this week was pretty disheartening. You got to be beaten up on the Marlins and the Padres, for God's sakes.
Yeah, and when you have a 9-game winning streak, you got to build on that and not come right out of it and collapse in on itself.
Absolutely. All right, guys, time for Shot in the Dark, our crazy prediction for the coming week. But let's check back on last week. So, Kurt, you predicted Chris Johnson a 320 batting average, 4 doubles and a homer. He went with a 185 batting average.
He did have a homer.
Yes, 1 homer, 1 double.
Nice, Curtis.
Yeah, very close.
Kiss O death.
Way to call the homer.
Yes.
Tammy, you predicted Freeman would hit 300 with 2 homers. He hit 214 with 1 homer.
Way to not call the homers.
Yes.
I predicted that the Braves would be in first with a 4-game lead, because we were playing the Marlins and the Padres this week.
Worst of all.
We are 1.5 back of Washington.
Yeah.
So, guys, again, none of us win this week. Kurt clings to his 1-0 lead over Hammy and I, but we will count this coming week as part of July to give Hammy and I a last fighting chance.
Boo!
No. Hey, man, we got to bend the rules.
Yeah.
So let's check in on our listener-submitted shots in the dark for the past week. So Eric Johnston from Facebook predicted that BJ, Justin, and Jason would each hit a home run in the same game, which was kind of a cool prediction. But it did not happen. Justin was actually the only one of the outfielders for the whole week that hit a home run. And Meg Lepore on Twitter, such good predictions, we picked her twice.
Yes, weekly favorite, Meg Lepore.
Meg predicted that Gaddis would hit 350 with 2 home runs in his return this week. He hit 200 with no home runs. All right, so we are continuing to ask for listener shots in the dark. We will pick our favorite 2 and track it during the week and discuss it on the next show. Submit it by Twitter or Facebook and use the hashtag ABTSITD. So look, sort of a goofy week in that tomorrow, Monday, is a noon start. So you can get them in before Tuesday's start in Los Angeles. But, when Freddie hits 2 home runs tomorrow and people predict 3 home runs for Freddie during the week, we probably won't pick yours. All right, so guys, your shot in the dark for this week. Curtis?
Cue the LL Cool J. Going back to Cali, Freddie Freeman, 310, 2 homers, 3 doubles.
All right, God, we need it. Freeman has really cooled off. All right, Hammy?
I'm going with a KOD myself, Kiss of Death. I think that Yasiel Puig is going to hit over 300 and have 2 homers against the Braves.
Yeesh.
So that's a kiss of death that he's not going to do that, or that's a kiss of death that he is going to do that against the Braves?
Well, either way, I win.
Oh, good. Well played.
Thank you.
All right, and mine is that Kimbrel will have 2 4-out saves this week. All right, guys, let's look to the week ahead and give some predictions. But first, the pitching matchup. So 7 games this week, 1 more with the Padres. And then it's on the road for 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Padres. So in Monday's Padres game, it's Santana versus, we don't know because Ian Kennedy got scratched today. On to the Dodgers, Harang versus Beckett and his 2.52 ERA. Although he's given up some runs in his 2 of his last 3 starts.
Well, but I hate facing Beckett.
Well, it doesn't get much better. Wood versus Greinke and his 2.74 ERA. He's also given up some runs over his last few starts.
Don't say Kershaw. Don't say Kershaw.
And then Thursday's game, it's an exciting one. Tehran versus Kershaw.
Oh.
So great matchup. And Kershaw, of course, the best pitcher on the planet. So that's less great. But, look, that's a playoff game right there. Let's see what Tehran does. And his whole crazy, I can't grip the ball in Los Angeles. It would be good to get past that as well. We'll see.
Yeah, don't look up Tehran's home road splits if you have a weak stomach.
All right, on to San Diego, where we'll see a rematch of today's game. Minor versus Eric Stoltz, who I loved in Mask, by the way.
Yes.
Well done.
It was great.
Thank you. Followed by Santana and Ian Kennedy, if he's pitching again. He has a 3.66 ERA. And then Harang versus Tyson Ross, who we did not see this series. He has a 2.65 ERA. So, guys, tough games in L.A. this week, obviously. West Coast road trip, not the easiest thing. What do you do for those 7 games? Curtis?
2 and 5.
Oh, boy.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeesh. All right.
There's your postseason hope meter right there.
Yeah. So
how does that? Where do our 2 wins come, Curtis?
One
tomorrow.
Yeah. Tomorrow, and then 1 in San Diego.
Wow, swept. Yeah, by L.A. Okay. Not that it's out of the realm of possibility. Don't get me wrong.
I'll go with the reverse jinx as well,
Yeah.
just to cover myself next week.
And all the glory that you get from predicting.
Right, because I win either
record.
way.
Yes, exactly.
Ham, how about you?
I think I am not as saddened by this week. I think we're going 4 and 3 this week. I think we win tomorrow, and then 1 and 2, 2 and 1.
Yeah, that's exactly my prediction, Hammy.
Yeah.
So
Yes, it
let's
is.
see that play out. All right, guys, that is the show. Everyone, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as iTunes and Stitcher, so that you don't miss any of our weekly shows. And as always, check us out at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com for past shows, to check out our blogs, and to post in our comments section. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at ATL Baseball Talk, and to like us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and go Braves!
Thanks for listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves. To find new shows, to post in our forum, or to send a comment, please visit us at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com.
Had to admit the